for this exercise, click on Open, browse to your Chapter 18 folder, and open up the file Chapter 18 Dimensions. From the project browser, scroll down to the Plumbing section and make sure you have Level 1 Fire Protection Piping Plan open. So before we start dimensioning, here's a couple of things. When you're dimensioning to objects, always try and dimension to objects that are in your file. So if we were going to dimension this sprinkler pipework, and we're going to dimension it against the architect's file, I'm not going to dimension between my sprinkler pipework and a wall. One of the reasons for this is that architects kind of like deleting things when all they need to do is change them. So I always dimension to my copy monitored grids, and I make sure that the architect's grids are turned off in the view. The main reason for this being, when the architect issues you a new file and you get the coordination review message come up, you can check that any changes he's made to the grids don't include deleting them, because as soon as a grid disappears, all your dimensions will go too. But you won't have that check if you do your dimension to a wall. Unless, of course, you copy monitor all the walls as well. But that's really going to go too far, especially if you're working on a large project. So with all that said, let's look at the Dimension tool. From the Annotate tab, we've got the Dimensioning tool. Here you can see we can click on Aligned, Linear, Angular, Radial, New to Revit MEP 2013, Diameter, Arc Length. We can also do spot elevations, spot coordinates, and spot slopes. Here I'm just going to go with the Aligned dimension. My Contextual tab changes, and at this point I'm going to dimension between the actual pipes themselves, and click to place the dimension. Let's scroll in and see the dimensions we have. I've currently got a match line in the way, so I'm going to temporarily hide that. And we can now see that we've got 3600 for the first two segments and 3771 for the last one. So I can change that by selecting the pipe and changing my dimension. Notice how it pulls everything that's connected down with it. Now these dimensions are equal, and I could apply an equality dimension to them. This means that changes made to one will reflect in all of them. Now that these dimensions are spaced equally, I can select one of the pipes and do one of two things. I can either change the entire length and the dimensions stay equally spaced, or I can drag the grips for the temporary dimension and change one. So that's shown you how flexible the equal constraint is. If I delete this dimension, however, I'll get a message, and it tells me a dimension with a lock or an equal constraint is being deleted, but the elements will still be constrained. Push Unconstrain to remove the constraints, or OK to leave the elements constrained. Well, let's click on OK and see what happens. There's nothing appearing in my drawing, but if I select one of the pipes, you'll see that we still have this equal constraint. Here it is here. It's almost like the dimension is still there, but it's not, it's the constraint. And with it selected, I can delete it. If I want to, that is. If you did want to have these pipes constrained, it's always a good idea to have the dimensions somewhere. Maybe having a view that's a design view that shows your constraining dimensions. So let's delete this one for the time being. And I'm going to put another dimension in here between my grid line and one of the vertical pipes. If I select the vertical pipe and change my dimension, the whole pipe run moves, and selecting the dimension, I can pick on this padlock. The padlock means that these pipes can now not move. So Revit is trying to move the pipes, but it's telling me the constraints are not satisfied. I can either remove the constraints or click on Cancel. We get the same behaviour if I delete this dimension. We'll get the warning that can be ignored, with the lock constraint now being in place. This time I'll unconstrain it. We can see from here that the dimensioning tool is a very powerful one, as are the constraints, and the constraints should be used with a bit of care. Maybe you do want your pipe to always be 4 meters from the grid line, but the more constraints you put into your model, the harder it becomes, especially in the early stages, to move things. And this can lead to problems when you're trying to move a sprinkler on level 1 and a pipe on level 4 is preventing you from doing it. So only constrain the really important things, the things that cannot move.